All right. So today for our ABC Huddle team Huddle or whatever, we're going to do for September 7th, 2022, just going to look at a couple of more of the formatting questions. And I'm really wanted to ask those of you who are on here, and I hope that if you're watching the recording, you'll also send feedback. But as I'm sending out edits and final documents for you, would it be, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be more efficient for us to simply review your questions from the edits that you've been receiving. Generally, I find that there's some formatting things going on, which, sometimes just need to be addressed. And I know Aline had sent me one question already.
Yeah.
But that way you guys can, get your edits, take a look, make a note of what's really, concerning you, or you have a question about, you can't get your head wrapped around, because I understand that probably 80% of the edits, it's typo with verb tense, or, something just, was a missing letter or comma or whatever. So I just want to make our time more efficient. I mean, I don't know that unless we really get into some really neat stuff, and I adore your questions, honestly. But that way, we don't need to sit for an hour necessarily, me being a Charlie Brown mom, as I've said before. So if that's something that you think would work, open to your feedback, and I'd love to start doing that, especially as we start turning around these edits. And I know I'm not going to put you on the spot, Claire. I know that was a last minute send this morning. Did I? Oh, and I think I sent them to Aline already. The WPC meeting, right? Aline,
Yeah.
that's the one you had an ask. Okay.
HPC,
So there's a
yeah.
couple things on there, but for the most part, most of my comments really have to do with like a little more formatting, just to help with some of the material. And let me just jump to that. So let's do the Hillsborough one first, because I know that that's good for both Aline and Claire.
Yeah, that was really tough to hear, wasn't it, Claire?
Oh my
I
gosh,
was back.
they've had
I
such
mean,
problems with their
hours.
audio.
Oh, awful. It was
And-
awful. I had to go 2 or 3 times to some of that stuff. And I said, boy, Claire, you did a great job. But let me tell you, whoops, where are you? Where is everybody?
I just moved you.
What did I say?
Who's on
Did I
first?
say something to offend you, Claire? I'm sorry.
That Joseph Ott too, the transportation engineer, he speaks very quickly, and he also is clearly speaking off whatever microphone they
Yeah.
put him on.
Yeah, I noted the audio issues to staff on that one. So one little cheat that this all brought to my mind is are you guys all using the Express Scribe as your player?
Yes.
Okay, and do you know how to enhance the audio?
No.
Yes.
Okay, so you have the tools. You go to you go to the file. Oops, click on file, and you go down to special audio processes. And then you can go to extra volume boost. So sometimes if that doesn't get it done, usually I have done as many as 2 audio boosts. It does help a lot. I have found that the background noise reduction, kind of a waste of time. It makes it sound really weird. And the high pass filter, I just worry about the extra volume boost, but it can really help you just enhance enough of the audio to make it more clear. Also, if you're like me, and as you have progressed through transcription, whether you're a proofer or a transcriptionist, you know that you can change the speed of your audio. So I generally, depending on the speaker, now there are some very slow speakers across all of our boards. And I can jack that speed up to 137%. Like it's going, like it shortens your transcription time. And it's something you have to kind of train your ear to. So if you're not hearing, keep it slow, keep it at 100%. That's going to be your most clear audio. But as you're developing your transcription skills and your listening skills, even as proofers and editors, you'll find that you can usually increase that speed and you'll be just fine. Your ears are going to pick that up. And the more you do it, the faster you tend to go. However, still got to be accurate, right? But you'll find that you can substantially change. Like there was Commissioner Mesbah. He's one of our commissioners with City of Wilsonville. And I usually listen to that man at 160%.
He's very slow. Yes.
He's very slow. So there's the tip for profitability.
Okay.
And certainly you don't have to share with the group, but one thing we were doing as when we were training individually is always watching your ratios. How many hours is it taking you to type or transcribe 1 hour of audio? And we found that 5-to-1 is kind of the sweet spot. We don't want you going any more than that. The goal is to get you closer to about 4.5 hours per hour. Again, that can change depending on the type of meeting you're doing. If you're doing a work session, for instance, which Claire just finished for Wilsonville, and we're going to look at that in a minute. As they're going through the presentations, which we only need a little summary sentence, you can jack that, speed up to 190, as long as once you get the little pretty paragraph to introducing the presentation, you can just fast forward. Just all you want to do is make sure that they're not asking questions within the PowerPoint. Sometimes they'll interrupt and do that. But that can also substantially change your ratio, as opposed to a public hearing, which, it's he said, she said all the way down. And of course, there's not a lot of shortcutting you can do on that. So I hope that you find that helpful. And if you're concerned about your ratios, let me know.
That does prompt a question, and we don't necessarily have to jump on it right now, but that's a writer downer that I do want to follow up with tonight, because I came across the last two that I've done. When we have commentary, I'd like to talk about how we're structuring that commentary, or when we're having a public commentary or public comments and that. So if that's relevant right now, that's great. Or if you want to continue on with some of the hardware side of things, please.
Chris, do you mean as far as the level of detail?
No. In this case, the actual structure within the minutes, breaking it out into paragraphs.
Okay. Let's see. I can share. Let's see if I can share Hillsborough. Hillsborough, I don't think had any public. Did Hillsborough have commentary, girls? I can't remember.
Not the last
Nope.
2 meetings
Not
they
the
did.
last
No.
one.
Okay.
Not the one we just did, Claire.
No.
Are you looking at the LOCC then, Chris? Is that what brings
We
it
can
to
use
mind?
that one, or we can use the one that I just did that first hour for. The one with
West
Boniface. So
Okay.
either one is either one. The question stayed the same in that.
Makes sense. Right.
From a writing point of view, and that's my little hat. It would seem as though breaking some of this commentary into paragraphs based on the conversation or the commentary that these people are actually leaving. But I've noticed in the minutes, there's just a big block of text.
That's a grand question, and it does change at times. And I'm trying to think if I'm just pulling this up raw. Yes, let me see. Come on.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. All good. Not sure why this is not coming up. Let's see. Oh, probably because I need to stop share. That's why. Sorry about that, guys. Operator error for sure. Okay, West Lynn. Public comment. Bam. So when the one thing I would say is mostly just topical. When they're talking about, let's see, looks like a building code or building something in the building code, I would keep
Correct.
that as one paragraph. And then mentioning now he's talking down here about IGA, and I would put
Right.
that as a bullet.
Okay, so yeah, I had broken this out from one big block of text, and then I started to have second guesses, and I was like, well, I've got to come back and redo the dang whole thing anyhow, because he's not done with all the transcription on the rest of it. So I'll leave that for the time being and ask about it. Of course, course, I forgot to ask him to call last week, and then it came up last night but in the I don't remember, Lake Oswego yesterday, the comments were limited by the number of by 2 minutes for 2 minutes. So there was only so many places. They were all focused on pickleball, what have you, but and so yeah, Claire just started twitching. So they were all focused on that, but the comments were either for or against. That was pretty much it. Nobody went off to start wool gathering. But in some of these other ones, there are clear changes in subject within the commentary. So I wasn't sure how to approach that.
Yeah, I would just break it down by topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a bullet is fine.
Okay.
All righty. Stop share. All right. So I think I will go to we'll go ahead and look at the HPC July 27th, since that was both for. We've got
delete the meat.
I know.
I know. I went back 3 times to listen to that. And I said, I don't think that's right.
Oh yeah. Unique.
We got it right.
Meat. Yeah, 2 syllables. It's challenging, and that's one thing. Just an overall. If something just doesn't seem right, just put it in blue with a timestamp.
I did think they said meat. I really did. I didn't think it sounded right, but they say a lot of things that sound weird to me. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Claire, I had to go back a couple of times and I said, I don't think that's right. What are they saying? But then I caught it. Then I got it. But they say I've forgotten. Unique, I think is the word they were saying. I don't remember exactly. Okay.
Okay. So as both sides, as we're working through these minutes, we want to make sure we insert the staff that's there. They don't always do a roll call for staff, but as we were, working through this document, Ruth Klein, sometimes staff will be listed on the agenda, but they're not the one that does the meeting. So we only want to put the ones that are actually stating their case, and she did later on. And then he was the transportation guy for the city. So we want to include, any staff that presents or is addressing questions, we want to include them up in the in staff present. Timestamps don't have to be bolded. I know that's one extra step for you guys, and it's one extra step for us when we're changing it for the client. So just the plain old orange is fine. And I know, Claire, you probably remember this more than I do, but the 0.2, we don't need 0.2 seconds. We don't need the seconds. We don't need, how do I say that?
The nanosecond. I just in the last 2 I did, I finally figured out the shortcut from Express Scribe.
Excellent.
And so the last 2 I did do have the nanosecond, but it's very exact because it's the shortcut.
Okay, well then don't, because I've had some transcriptionists trying to type all that in, and it's like, oh my goodness. But if it's just a shortcut, fantastic.
I'm just doing the shortcut now, which
if
you guys don't know what that shortcut is. It's just F3 and then paste, and it puts in the exact time that you pressed F3. So which comes in handy with Hillsborough because their last meeting also had some audio issues. So
yeah.
So does it automatically color it and put it in bold for you?
No, then I went back and did that. So now that I know I don't have to bold it, I'll just leave it. Okay.
Yeah, no bold needed, so that's good. I think perhaps when we just make sure you check the footer was an error this time. And then I'm trying to find, okay. I don't know if that was it. Let me see. Have we talked about punctuation around the timestamps before?
Punctuation before the timestamp if it's in question is afterwards to make it easier to delete.
Super. Okay, done.
But I don't remember us talking about that.
I don't remember us talking about it either.
Okay. I will find one. ORS, even though they just state ORS on for this video that's played,
Okay.
and it's been in our samples prior, it is best to just type it all out. And that's one thing Laura and I are working on. I know especially for the proofers, you guys get the short end of the stick on that because you don't always have samples available to look about how things are done. And this will address your question, Arlene, about how we set up those bullet points in the colon. But we're working to get a sample for every template or for every meeting that goes out so that it's on the template, and then you guys should have a copy so you can reference a good or final, I should say, set of meeting minutes from that particular city and board. And
I
that
did find one mentioned in the one yesterday that I have no idea what it was, so I made a note about that because maybe they just made it up on their reply. I don't know, but I
Okay.
made a note of it.
Okay,
But
good.
I have my cheat sheet right here, and I was poring over it. I was like, "Where in the hell is that?" With the just making up. Okay.
They do have new ones from time to time, especially depending on the city. That is true. Let's see.
There you are.
Oftentimes,
Okay,
I'm
go
sorry?
ahead. You didn't have to
Oftentimes,
answer my question yet, but go ahead.
right to the real. Okay, so oftentimes, when they're talking about the planning commission, we can just, start usually the section as planning commission and then just commission thereafter. It's kind of backwards here. We could have put it up here with this one, but then we don't have to say planning commission. Every once in a while, it's all that's necessary, but we can shorten that out so we're not repeating it so much. And I understood the reason that there was a range for this audio was probably because that's the whole entire part that was inaudible or was challenging.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I would put, and that's fine. So I'm to understand that it was inaudible through pretty much this whole section.
Yeah.
Generally, when we put the blue in because this is the same way it goes to staff, right? So it went to the client with just the 1240 because that's where this blue was indicated. So when I put a blue timestamp at the end of a paragraph, or if I'm indicating that something's inaudible, it is directly tied to wherever that blue is in the paragraph. And then we would just, you could say audio issues throughout or something like that, but it's just kind of confusing since it's connected with this paragraph, but it also would transcend into these as well. I hope
Yeah,
that's clearer than mud.
That was really difficult. I kept listening to that and I said, okay, I'm just leaving this one alone.
Yeah,
I didn't want to make too many changes because I knew that it had been, Claire had already been through it, and I thought, no, I'll give it we'll be buying a pig in a pulp by the time I finish with that one. So I left it. Good job, Claire. I followed your lead.
You did great. Okay, so this I believe is
my question.
Okay.
Everyone else is just our standard thing. Ruth Klein, urban planner, noted there was no addition. Everyone else is done that way. And Claire had it that way. And I did my correction on it. I forgot what I said. I just said noted the development would pay. I just changed it to
changed it to the same line. So that is where a sample.
And when it came back, I thought, why is that? That's the only one. And I went through it twice because I thought, well, maybe I missed something here, but I've been through it twice. And then the third time, just before I sent you that note, and I said, I don't know why that would have been done separate. Why was that not in sync with everyone else?
Great question. So this is where a sample would have benefited you immensely. Hillsborough, when they have a series of questions from a commissioner, breaks it down to, the name of the commissioner and then the verb in the main bullet point thereafter. So he noted the developer, auth responded. Okay. He asked what level, auth replied. He confirmed this and asked that, auth replied. He understood, blah, blah, blah. So that's just
okay.
their format. And I don't think there just weren't another series of questions in here, and that's why you didn't
It
see that
wasn't
repeated.
the only one that was done that way. That's
And
why I couldn't understand it. And I said, I don't know why. Why are we not in sync
Yeah.
with everyone else on this?
yeah, and
Okay,
it's
well,
only
that's
the
good.
commissioner versus who's responding. And that also applies if the commissioner is talking to an applicant about their development project or whatever. The same format is used for Wilsonville's Planning Commission. Right now, Claire, don't worry about it. It was all a work session. In a hearing, this is where we use that format.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Now I just have to remember it.
Right?
Now you remember that part.
Yeah.
Well, can I just ask a clarifying question on bullet
Yes.
points for Hillsborough specifically, like I guess for all cities? So when a person is presenting so here we have Ruth Klein, the bullets are aligned against the right margin.
Mhm.
And then if a commissioner asks a question, their question aligned against the right margin, response is indented over.
Correct.
Because I think I just understood that yesterday when I submitted the last Hillsborough hearing, because I had been doing it so that whoever the presenter was, their audio, their transcript was always indented over one instead of aligned against the right margin.
Yeah.
So I'm only indenting when they're responding to a question.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Then
Against
I
the left
did,
margin.
like I said in my email, then I did finally get that. So
Good. Yeah, it's, and as I'm sure you've all come through, it's a process, you pick up on things at different times. Your brain just works that way. So.
I agree.
Yeah.
So in this, I think we've talked about this, and I know, Claire, these also, you did this meeting a while ago, and we've progressed through training on different things. So forgive me if I'm repeating. Just setting up the bullet, I think there was nothing after proposal. It was just the period. So we want to, with these key comments or additional comments, so that we're setting up the reader.
yes.
How do these
No,
bullets work?
We did discuss that at one point, I think after I did this meeting, because that's going back to like writing a press release,
Yeah.
Well, and instead of, yes, because the press releases are always written so that reporters can just grab a bullet point. And so I didn't worry about setting up a reader in the same way.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense. This one was kind of unusual. I can't remember what the original was. I think it was just simply called for public testimony. But a lot of times it's really more of a Robert's Rule of Order that they are supposed to ask for, is there testimony in favor? And then they wait. Now we're listening to testimony that's opposed, and then they wait. Anybody neutral to the application, and and it's just a set thing. So this is really the boilerplate that we want.
Okay.
It is a little nuancy depending on our client, but hands down across the board, this is what we like the team to do, because it's easier to adjust a few little words to make it customized versus having to retype it every time. And this is also, if you've looked at the guidelines or remember from the guidelines, it has, those key milestones in a public hearing. And this is one of them. It's always calling for public testimony on every application that comes across. They will even do that. So don't want to get off on a tangent, but I don't know if I've covered quasi-judicial versus legislative. Okay, so quasi-judicial public hearings or actions have to do with making an approval or a denial on a development project, for instance. And so that involves an applicant and site plans and what's happening, this, that, and the other on building, let's say a subdivision or a office building or infill housing, whatever. A legislative hearing has to do with changing the law of the city. So that's when code comes in, like, or master plan updates. I think all of you probably heard of that a little bit. So the master plan is what sets the stage for these quasi judicial things that are coming in, but it's really the law, the code of what's going to be happening in that subdivision or area of the city.
Right.
And so planning commissions often are for sure legislative. Sometimes they do both, but the planning commission, for instance, in both Hillsborough and Wilsonville they change the law. So that's a legislative hearing. Even in a legislative hearing, they call for public testimony in favor of, opposed, or neutral to the
Okay.
application or that. So the guidelines kind of filter that out a little bit more, but sometimes it helps to understand what in the world are they talking about? What's the point? Why are they changing this, right? So
And go ahead, Claire.
oh, sorry, I was just gonna ask, so that's the pros we want to use regardless of the wording, that because Bennett, he just says, is there anyone
Yeah.
present for testimony? Is there anyone online?
yeah,
But we should be using that. Okay.
yeah. And if they don't say it, you can just highlight it in blue.
Okay.
A lot of times our clients will use ABC to kind of help inform their boards that they need to be towing the line a little better. Short,
Okay.
long story short. Chris?
No, I was going to say I've heard on some of the audio quasi judicial and legislative thrown around almost as an accusation. But no, because it was, somebody gets their feelings hurt because this is the quasi judicial this and this is the this and they're trying, they're self-described attorneys, I guess, because they watched Law and Order, and so it's so no, I thank you for that explanation.
Yeah. Well, and probably more information than you want, making sausage and all that. But a lot of times the public will get confused about what actions they can take. So I'm sure we've described that before, where, a new developer is coming in and changing a neighborhood, and the public testimony is irate. How can you ruin our historic neighborhood? How can you do this? How can you do that? In a quasi judicial hearing setting, they can't do anything because the application is reviewed against the law that's in place at the time.
Correct.
And so that means it's required to go to a legislative hearing to change the code so that a 5-story building can't be built by a 1910 house. As an extreme
Technically,
example.
they can, because the zoning change is right past that house, and so they can build that 5-story building. I was on that
Exactly.
particular one because
Yeah.
what's his name got his feelings hurt because his zoning was different, but literally where they wanted to build the building was not the same, and he got a case of the ass about it.
So when purchasing a home or a building, make sure you check and see where the zoning lines are.
Yeah.
I mean, I like bumping my own gas, and I'm not going to move to Oregon.
There you go. Well, no, it happens in a lot of cities. That's the
It
thing.
does.
Okay, so my last little bitty, well, 2 things, maybe 3. First of all, the blue that we use for inaudibles and timestamps, we don't know what about, is a weird blue. I know it's crazy, but just look for a bright blue. And what it is, it's not in your normal color scheme. I'm sorry, I started this 17 years ago, and this is what we're doing. Just go down to more colors. And why is this not coming up? It's flashing. Why is this happening? You'll see when you check on more colors. I don't know why this isn't coming up. I apologize. It's the color palette. It's a bright blue that jumps out of you. There's like a couple, 3 of them that will work, but I'm trying to move away from really mild wimpy blues because of certain blues will not print out, as I recall, and it's just what our clients are used to seeing. So if you could default to this bright blue, that would be awesome.
Is there any way that you could get the hex code or the
I
RGB?
know. That would be great. I can ask Laura to help me with that.
Yeah, because then I could put that in and make sure I have the right.
Okay,
That'll make it an easy change.
that's a good plan. That's a good plan. Okay, I'm gonna stop share. Okay, then on the WPC, I'm just gonna share a minute. So the Wilsonville Planning Commission was oh, now it's up. How pretty. Sorry, now it got me on hex codes. Now see, I've got my own rabbit trail, Claire. All right, I thought I had this up just a second. Apologies. I guess there we go. Sorry about that. All right. Share.
So this is the August 10th meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Did you have a question right off the bat?
No, I was looking at I just pulled up the original over here.
Okay. Okay. So two quick things. This is work session. So basically everybody's brainstorming about a presentation that happened. So we can remove and this is no reflection on Claire. She took this at the last minute because we had a cancellation. So I think this was her first work session with this particular board, and it was a little meaty. So as we start these work sessions, we basically do a really quick overview or pretty little paragraph on what they're talking about. And a lot of times they will enter a good presenter, for those who are familiar, will outline the key highlights of what their presentation is going to bring, right? And in this case, this Michelle did exactly that. She goes, I'm going to introduce my team. I'm going to explain this. I'm going to explain that. I'm going to give you details about this, that, and the other. And we want feedback on X, Y, and Z. So basically that is what I put in her presentation. That's about all I did. The purpose, yeah, all of this orange was from her intro comments. So it makes it really succinct. And that goes for all of these people here. The thing I wanted to show was on timestamp 2412. Another great reason for timestamps. Okay. Let's see if I can find where I put it. Out of order, 2412. Give me a minute. Oh, there we go. Okay. So Heberline is classic for this. So if someone picks up the Planning Commission, this is most helpful for you. Speakers will often make their point and then come back around and go, if we did that, this could happen. And so what ABC will do is we'll replace that with what they said. He had repeated, he kind of tended to repeat himself, but if you can identify what they're referencing back to, we can just replace that.
Yeah.
Replace the word that with what does that mean? It helps the reader from having to go back and go, okay, what are they talking about? Because as you all know, when they are brainstorming can be challenging because their thoughts are all over the place. But it just helps to better align the document. Kind of level 500, 600, but if you're seeing them saying, if we could just do that, or if that is something the city wants to do, when they use the word that as to replace a noun or a phrase, just replace the word that with that noun or phrase.
Okay.
And it's kind of a mind meld, but just kind of keeping aware of it, knowing that's on your radar. It'll take a little bit sometimes to connect to those, but now that you're aware of it, you'll see those in the edits. Okay. And the last thing I just wanted to look at quickly was what if you have things that are out of order? And in this meeting, the banks one, the Public Works Director is giving his report, but then he comes back he's talking about a sports court that was put in at the local park.
Mhm.
And he was moving on from his presentation, but then at the end he goes, oh, and at the sports court, we also backfilled, you know, the court with dirt, et cetera, et cetera. And he talks about the sports court again. And since it was, you know, within that topic, and this is just a staff report, they're just updating council on what's happening in the city.
Mhm.
We can move that up, but including a timestamp will kind of make the proofers aware that, you know, oh, that's
Okay.
out of place. And we'll come back to that later, because I think this was probably like around, maybe it was like 11 minutes in, 10 minutes in. And I know when I'm proofing, it's like, oh my gosh, why is that there? Why did they put that? Oh, well, of course, they come back to it, and I'll edit everything out. I've done that in the past. I don't do that anymore, thinking it's an error. But in fact, you know, they're doing, the transcription is doing exactly what they're supposed to, and just pulling that material together.
Okay.
So those were my biggies today. I think next week we might look at some nuances as far as how things are stated and versus how they're heard and transcribed. It's natural to try to oversimplify, and we've talked about this before, and then it makes the sentence inaccurate. But a lot of times false starts will throw you. You know, it's like you go off a false start and you think they're saying this when in fact they were just correcting themselves, and it was actually in a different direction.
Action. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That happened a lot with the last Hillsborough meeting, the one I sent you yesterday. It's only 26 minutes, but it took me way longer than the 5-to-1 ratio, both because
Oh,
of the
I'm sorry.
audio, but also because the audio in the end, I just picked out the words from the slideshow that I knew he was saying.
Crazy. Yeah, I'll put
Um,
number one. I'll put another message right out to staff as soon as we're done here.
But Grillo had several false starts. He seemed to be his little off yesterday.
Yeah.
Wasn't himself. But and I don't know that I accurately captured what it was he was trying to say. And I did listen to it several times, and I hope I didn't summarize it too much, because he spent about 2 minutes of his first question repeating himself and coming back and
He
restating
does
everything.
do that, or I've picked up on that in a couple instances where you kind of get an idea of who he is based on prior conversations you've heard, and he come out of left field on the last one. I'm like, wait, is this the same guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you do have to listen to it. You're like, it's the same guy. He's
Yeah.
it almost feels like it's wishy-washy. It's really not. He's just wandering around before he finally gets to the point, and it is really distracting.
Yeah. So, and that one was, that was the August 24th one that you just submitted, right? Okay.
Yes. And another question on that.
Yeah.
Sorry. So you'll see what I wrote, but I was trying to keep it accurate to audio and not rewrite, what's his face? Their planning director, who's,
Cooper or DS?
Yeah, Cooper, because he tends to be very long-winded. And the second thing he says in his planning director's report, there's no presentation this month, he was just kind of speaking off the cuff, but the second thing he says is, which is nice to get an update on, Luba affirmed the planning commission's decision in the Second and Main's Common project.
Ooh.
Which is interesting, but he doesn't actually say that. He says, he says something like, the Land Use Board of Appeals affirmed on all counts yesterday. And then 3 sentences later mentions Second and Main's. Now, I'm sure the Planning Commission is aware that that's the only that maybe that was the only thing that was up before Luba that they were involved in, but I didn't feel like I could then rewrite what he said to say
Yeah,
affirmed the planning commission's decision on the second and main project
yeah.
on all counts, because
He didn't state it.
he didn't state it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we find, when the sentences are together, and especially the sentence segments that are said differently, they have to be put together so it's accurate. If you don't put the related words together, it's a miss. But in that instance, and I'm sure you'll see it, but you have a gut feeling when it is. And so I would just put that, second main in blue brackets with a timestamp with a question mark, like, say what you mean what you
Yeah.
say.
He's later refers to it, but he refers to it separately as, this second and mains project is going to really be, it's a great project.
And if you're sure that that's what he's referencing with the Luba, then you can put it in, type the
Okay.
sentence as you'd want it, and then put it blue with a timestamp if you're just kind of a little nervous about it. That's what I-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
the question. Super. Anything else for today, guys?
I listened to part of Lake Oswego's city council meeting last night.
You're crazy, girl.
I was up, and so I thought that's still going on because they're in Oregon. So it's gonna
It's
be a lot
called
about
melatonin, Claire. Get you
I
some.
know, I know.
Above and beyond.
Very easy to get.
So it's gonna be a lot about trees. I'm just preparing you all. There's lots about trees.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that one. I'm sorry again.
Go ahead, Chris.
Just gonna say, at least it's not pickleball.
No.
Yes. Although I felt really bad because they talked earlier in that meeting. They're like, it's going to cost this older man how much money to get on the sewer line.
My father and I actually had a conversation about that today, because I kind of came at that was really an interesting point, because you hear about people allowing their property to be annexed by a city to be able to have certain city services.
Yeah.
And I never really contemplated, because I live out in the boondocks, I never really contemplated what's the actual cost to the citizen to tie in. Yeah, it's one thing that I got to bring the pipe to the curb, but in his case, and so yeah, and of course my father's got a long experience in real estate, and so he's like, oh yeah, you got to stroke the check. He goes, but for what they're asking him to do, he needs to be lawyering up. He needs to be talking to the city. He needs to be talking to the county, and he needs to be talking to the state, because there are laws that are kind of boxing him in that he deserves to have some relief from, because clearly the law they referenced in 1984, that's 40 years ago.
Well, it kind of made me panic because we are on the municipal water system, but we have a septic tank. And I went upstairs and I was like, I asked my husband, I was like, did you ever find out how much it would be to connect to the sewer? Because I really hope it's not over 10 grand. Otherwise it's never happening. And he's like, no, it'd only be 10 grand. I was like, great, I'm positive. But in Oregon, they require you to repave the road curb to curb where it's been torn up. And I mean, just
In that city.
and that
Yeah,
was
so
amazing.
he lives on a county maintained road. He's being annexed by the city. His septic tank failed in March, and he's got $168,000 bill coming due, and he's 75 years old. And
Poor man.
yeah, he's really in a box, but it's got a valid point that, in this instance, he's over a barrel, but it's one of those weird ethical, moral dilemmas that you find yourself, that people find themselves in.
Yeah.
It's not that, anybody wanted to be sympathetic. Nobody was unsympathetic in the audience.
No, but they were doing everything was according to the letter of the law and stuff like
Yep.
that. But it was such, and then they spent, 90 minutes on pickleball. And that I found infuriating. It's like, this poor man. Now he's just
Yeah.
sitting here.
And they've already spent 70 grand to make it quieter at the pickleball joint. I'm like,
at the
"They got
pickleball call.
this guy hadn't been able to take a whiz in his own house since March, and we're worried about damn pickleball."
Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It was.
Yes, this is
interesting.
the stuff that we just, it's a different side of how government works or should not work.
A lot of times not work.
Right? Did you have
Very
another
interesting.
question, Clara? Sorry.
No, I did. I was gonna ask you for the most recent, I think you sent them to me, but then I lost them, the most recent Lake O edits. Only because yesterday when I was listening to part of the meeting, I also looked at the agenda and there's 5 proclamations on the agenda. And I just want to make sure I have the wording of how they make those proclamations correctly.
Okay,
Because it,
you'll have that.
okay, because I don't think that we write out the proclamations
Oh, no, 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 no.
because that would be ridiculous. I think we just say make the proclamation, but I want to make sure I have it correctly because there are 5 of them.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's something just like whoever it is read the proclamation declaring September 25th as don't buy a sewer septic system.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, all right, great. Anything else, guys?
No, thank you very much again for your time, Paula.
Yes,
Um,
thank
for
you.
your
As
time.
always, very
Great.
informative.
Great,
Yes.
great.
That'd be
I look forward to
appreciated.
talking with Chris and Arlene on the 15th. And
Got
the next meeting is the 14th of September already. My goodness. Oh, yes, that's good. That's good. Okay, we're on it. We're good.
All right. Thanks, Paula.
All right.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Great evening.
Bye,
Thanks so
Claire. Have
much.
a good evening.
See you
You
all.
too. Bye.
Have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.